Hello and welcome to this game review. So in this one we have a very interesting game and we will talk a little bit about pawn majorities and choosing the correct plan and also piece activity. Right? So we have the Slav defense and white plays this bishop g5 move, which generally is not considered a very good move as it doesn't really do anything about the pawn on c4, so black took it and why not? E4, b5, so black is defending his extra pawn and he should be slightly better here. Knight f3. Yeah, a4 is a way to play, but I don't think it's possible specifically here. You gave this line, but I think you missed that simply the bishop is hanging, so this is not really possible. In some other positions, perhaps this is possible with the bishop on f4 or c1. This is kind of a way to play for white, but here I don't think white can do this. So knight f3, bishop b7. Yeah, bishop b7. This is possible, but I think currently there is no reason for the bishop to go to b7 in general, as it can still come out through this diagonal if possible, because we haven't played e6. And here we have a few interesting continuations, maybe just b4. I think it's simplest to exchange some pawns. Now white can take here, but after this we can just finish our development somehow, and we are a pawn up. We do have some kind of weaknesses, but after all, we are a pawn up. We also have the bishop pair. We have some simple developing moves like bishop a6 available to us. But okay, bishop b7, bishop e2, knight b d7. It is possible. Okay, e5. And yeah, here you mentioned queen b6, but to me this looks a bit strange, developing the queen so early. Generally, black just wants to play e6 and castle, and he should be more or less fine. After that, a6 and c5 is the general plan. So e6 is already possible to do this as soon as possible. e5 is usually not very scary because of h6. And here g5. And yeah, this whole variation exists, but it's more or less fine for black, as he will castle queenside, and their pieces are quite active. Okay, knight b7, e5, knight d5, and here white might be slightly better if he plays correctly with castles and putting the knight on e4 if possible, and black is not really in time to finish his development. But after this, now the structure has been improved for black, so now black definitely has a very clean extra pawn. He just has to finish development, and white finds this idea of e6, which is quite a good idea to stop black from developing smoothly, but at the cost of a pawn. You mentioned this, but I think here clearly white is a lot better because of the square on e5 and the weak king. And this doesn't really change anything, whether or not there's a pawn here or not. So we should just take such pawns. Now bishop d2, so this hints at knight g5. Black plays queen b6, defending in advance. Bishop g5, g6. But yeah, bishop g5 is a strange move. Doesn't really do anything. And now black had the chance of taking here, which is generally preferred because now there will be a somewhat weak pawn on d4. And most importantly, black has a very simple plan here of winning the game to push his 4-on-2 pawn majority. And the pawn majorities are usually what defines the main plan for us in all positions. And here black will have a connected passed pawn on d3. For example, instantly we can just castle kingside. It's true that our bishop is kind of dead, but it will take a while for white to do anything about it. We can castle queenside or kingside, and white will still have to lose a lot of time defending this pawn, defending this pawn. The bishop will be kicked around. d3 is an idea. So this position is just generally winning. Bishop g7 is also fine. Now again, black has finally developed his pieces. Of course, the pieces are not extremely well developed, but they're developed enough. And this is a problem bishop, but it has two potential avenues, which you didn't really discover, either going to this diagonal eventually or to this one. So bishop e3 and rook a to f8, but I think this is the completely wrong plan, which black has found. The correct plan is usually connected to pawn majorities, and here we have a pawn majority of 3 against 2 on the queen side, so our general plan should be to create a passed pawn on c3 and to create a queen. So we have an extra pawn, so this is it. So we should just play a5, b4, the bishop can go to a6 eventually, c3, This is also a weakness which white has to look at. The rooks should go maybe to c8. The king might even go this way to be safe. So here, playing on the king side, I think is the completely incorrect plan, because we only have 2 pawns here against 3, so there's no guarantee that this will work out. While here, white can never really stop us from creating a real fast pawn. So this was kind of the wrong game plan, and the rook f8, h5 turn out to be kind of useless moves. White should play b3 to try to attack this king somehow, and it's not yet clear how to play for white, but I think if he gets a4 and starts exchanging pieces, the king might be a little bit weak. But okay, now white doesn't really do anything, so this gives black time to improve the position. He put his pieces on the king side and then played b3, so this is not very efficient. And here again, the computer suggests to start playing where you are stronger, on the side where you have the pawn majority, and try to create a passed pawn here. For example, c3 next. The rook on f5 is very strangely placed. The bishop can go to c6, the queen can come out somewhere here. And again, black's extra pawn is over here, so there's no reason to play on the king side. So now the position gets opened up a little bit. Bishop c6, queen a5. Here white could have improved his position with bishop d1, queen a5, and then bishop e4, getting rid of this defender. And black should find some decent ideas to not be worse here, because after all, his rook is kind of stuck on f5. So generally, we want our rooks to be connected, or at least to have the potential to be connected, because now if something happens on the queen side, our rook is way too slow to get there. Queen a5, queen c7, and this is also fine for black, because he finds e5, and bishop c2. And yeah, you mentioned this line that doesn't work with e6, d takes e5 is the correct spot, because you're right that if this, then bishop e7 wins. But a lot of people don't think about their opponent's resources, but you did. So d takes a5 is a good find. So this is why e6 will not work. After e4, black has advanced his pawn to e4, which is a good sign. Again, this attack on the queen side is kind of possible, but there's too much going on the queen side, so we should probably resolve things here first. So rook b4, but this doesn't really have any idea. If white doubles on the b file, there is not much happening here. In general, white should try to do something dynamic as soon as possible, and it turns out there's some move like bishop takes e4 here, which threatens the rook, and if we take, then the queen takes f5, so I'm not sure if this was missed. Oh, yeah, it was missed according to the comment, and yeah, e6 still saves the game because of this resource again, but white gets a lot of stuff for the queen, and at the end of this, white is an exchange up, but black is actually winning because of his active king and the 2 connected passed pawns. So this is a difficult variation, but before playing e4, of course, you should calculate what if he takes the thing that we just put on e4. Rook b4, now e6 is found. This is a huge threat, which the opponent simply missed. So g3 is a bit slow, and yeah, now the position is completely won. But there were still some kind of adventures here, not many, but king e7, we're allowing the opponent some kind of counterplay here. But I think, yeah, rook f1 and bishop f4. So here we're blundering a rook, so which is not very necessary. But I guess after this, black is still winning because this rook is also hanging. There is some check here, but I guess there's not really that much to analyze here. So after winning the queen, black went and finished the game quite smoothly. So generally quite a well-played game by black, but I think here fundamentally black did not understand that we should play generally on the side where we are stronger, and we are definitely not stronger on the king side. As you saw, the king side attack didn't really amount to much, and we should play where we have the pawn majority, 3 on 2, which means eventually 2 on 1, and eventually 1 on 0. So we should have a passed pawn on the c file eventually. And the king is kind of fine on d7. Just put your pieces on the queen side and start pushing.